My name is Bethany Christensen. I'm a licensed esthetician and cosmetologist. I work in Austin as a holistic esthetician and also as an instructor. So, what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is actually retail. Super important for estheticians. This is literally a survival skill. But I find that, especially when you first start out, it's really hard to sell to people and figure out what they need, what they want, and how to make those points come across easily. I also find that sometimes in the beginning, people just sell something in order to make a recommendation, and they don't really know why they're recommending that specific thing or if that's even what the client needs. So, what I want to go over with you today is actually my 5 retail priorities in order. And this is generally how I go about selling retail to people. I go down this list, and if they don't need it, then I go to the next thing, and so on and so forth. This is really important because you want to make sure that you're going to sell something to the client that they actually need and want instead of just making a random recommendation or recommending your favorite product. You need to make sure that it's something that they're going to take home. So, that's where I want to start with you guys today is just what priority to sell products in. So the very first thing that I do before I ever start making retail recommendations is I do my CSI investigation. So what this looks like is asking the important questions, going really deep with someone to figure out what's going on with their skin. So I like to start with a technique that I learned in a class about interviewing, actually, and doing research, which is what's called an around the world question. And essentially, what you do is you ask a question or a series of questions that requires multiple answers. And the goal is to actually get the client starting to talk. So you might say something like, tell me about your skin. What's going on right now? Do you have anything that has changed or anything that stands out to you as a major concern? This gives the client quite a few different points to start talking into, and then you build off of that. There are 4 really important questions that I look for when I'm trying to kind of go through in my head what the retail recommendation is actually going to be. So the first one is, what are they doing to their skin now? And is it something that's harming them? Harming them meaning, is it causing the condition that they're complaining about? Is it leading to something detrimental to their skin that we need to change? Because if that's the case, then this is our most important starting point. So, is something that they're doing harming their skin right now or leading to their concern? Okay, first question. Question number 2, is their skin healthy? And what this really means to me is their barrier impaired? So if they have some sort of barrier impairment, meaning their skin's barrier is not functioning properly, then that should be a primary concern because we can't treat anything until that barrier is functioning properly. Okay, so question 2, is their skin healthy? Is their barrier intact? Question number 3, do they have a real concern that they're trying to correct? And if they do, what is it? So it could be hyperpigmentation, it could be acne, it could be aging, whatever that is. Are they trying to correct something? Find out. So, number 3, what are you correcting? And then number 4, and this is kind of last on my list, but this is very important if you have a client that is very retail savvy. You need to know, are they missing something? So, is there a hole in their routine somewhere? Is there a white space or a gap? And then as we work through the checklist, that's going to lead you to which products to recommend. So, like I said, number 4, are they missing something? So, in addition to that, you need to know all the normal questions. Do they have allergies? Do they have, any medications that they're taking? All of those things. Those are important, yes, but this is more like important to us figuring out which retail is going to be appropriate for them. So this is the big thing. I go down this list in order of priority when I'm making my recommendation after I've kind of figured out where they're at. So number 1 priority, no matter who this client is always going to be SPF. Everybody needs sunscreen. You, if you're watching this, you're probably an esthetician, and I don't know how you couldn't agree with that. Everybody needs sunscreen. So always, that's one of my questions. That's part of the, are they missing something, or are you trying to correct something? This answers those 2 questions, or meets the requirement for those 2 questions if the answer is yes. And if they're doing something that's harming their skin or making it worse, not wearing sunscreen is one of those things. So it kind of meets all of those requirements, right? If they don't have a sunscreen that they like, no matter what is going on, that will always be my number one recommendation. Next on the list, so let's say they have an SPF, they're good to go there. So now I go down to the next one. Next in priority is targeted treatments. Targeted treatments includes all of our serums. Sometimes I would consider oils and under eye creams. And the reason that that's number two in priority is because serums do the work. So those are our smallest molecules. They penetrate deepest into the skin, and they're the most potent and effective for treating anything. I could not care less if a client uses Cetaphil, CeraVe, whatever cleanser, moisturizer everyone wants to hate on. If their skin is healthy, then that's not a concern for me to change. What I need to change is giving them the tools to correct something. So if they're trying to fix anything at all. Now, when you're looking at targeted treatments, you have three main options that everybody really needs, and that's going to be hyaluronic acid, vitamin C, and retinol. And depending on what they need, that can kind of steer you into which one of those to go. And you're not really ever going wrong if you recommend one of those three things, as long as the client really needs it. So going down the list again, 1 SPF, 2 targeted treatments. Number 3 is exfoliants. Now, exfoliants to me are important, but they are not the most important. We can, for example, give someone a targeted treatment that helps with doing things that exfoliation would do, like a retinol. So it's not going to be my primary recommendation, but it's something that we can talk about, discuss, or add in at a later point in time. This is also a place where sometimes we find people are doing something that harms their skin, and so we may need to jump into changing exfoliation before we make some of those other high-level priority recommendations. Just because if something they're doing is harming their skin, then that should take precedence. Okay, so exfoliation, number 3. Number 4 is moisturizer. So moisturizer is definitely important because we want people to have a good barrier and to protect their skin. But like I said, if they're already using something and it's not harming them, this is not a priority for me to change. And sometimes you actually recommend an SPF that's also a moisturizer, so you've met these two requirements at the same time, right? Okay, so this could also be something where, like, if their barrier is impaired, this will take priority over other things because our moisturizer is one of the main places that we repair barrier function. So, uh, something to think about. So, I'm going down my list. My client already has an SPF. They have a good vitamin C and retinol that they're using. They have a good exfoliant that they like. They have a great moisturizer. The last thing I'm going to recommend is a cleanser. And the reason that that's lost for me is because unless they're harming their skin with the cleanser that they have, this is like the least important of all the things. Of course, it's important for them to have clean skin, and it's important for them to have healthy, clean skin. But if their skin is healthy with the cleanser that they're using, this is not a priority for me to change. And I find that sometimes, especially with estheticians, I get really caught up in like, oh, they shouldn't use bad products or non-professional products, which I definitely agree. I want my clients to use my product and not something else, but this also isn't a priority. So clients already doing something that is not harming them, I'm not going to try to recommend a cleanser to them first thing. I will always do one of the other things first because SPF is way more beneficial. Targeted treatments are way more beneficial than any cleanser will ever be to treat a concern. That's just how it is. Cleansers can be made with all sorts of crazy ingredients now, exfoliants, hyaluronic acid, all of that, niacinamide, whatever. It's not really doing a lot when it's not a leave-on product, except for the benefit of exfoliation. So to me, that's last priority. Okay, so once again, in my order, I'm going to recommend SPF first. If they already have that, I recommend targeted treatment. If they already have that, I'm going to recommend an exfoliant. If they're already there, I recommend a moisturizer. And if that's already done, then I recommend a cleanser. And I only change that if they have some sort of issue that came up in my investigation, such as something they're doing is harming their skin barrier is not functioning properly, we're trying to correct something specific, or they're missing something. And really, even when you circle back to are they trying to correct something, generally you follow the checklist still because, like I said, SPF is going to be one of the number one things you need to correct in many of these skin concerns. Targeted treatments are going to be the next most important thing. And I guess I should also mention targeted treatments include our acne serums. That's also important. So hopefully this is helpful. I feel like sometimes it's a little overwhelming trying to like look at a skincare brand that has say 120, 150 products. You're trying to figure out like, what do I recommend? You know, a lot of times we think salicylic acid cleanser for acne is like the number one most important thing, but it really isn't. Generally more important that they're using a good targeted treatment and that their barrier is functioning properly before you start messing with their cleansers, unless their cleanser is harming them in some way. So hopefully that's helpful.